Welcome back to the Kicks and Picks podcast. Coming off another winning week, boys. 7-3, up 3.4 more units, bringing our 2024 record to 30, 14, and 5. And we've almost rebounded completely from that swoon that we went through at the end of 2023. Now 113, 106, and 10 on the season, just under or a little over three-tenths of a unit down, negative 0.38 on the season. But the podlock keeps cooking. That is now, just pulled it up here. What do we got here? 14-7. What do I got here?
14-7-2 plus
Yep.
5.5 units.
Plus 5.5 units. So another winning week. It feels good to have. I think this is 4 consecutive winning weeks for us, and 2024 has been kind to us. We're starting to see the board well again, and yeah,
some of us are.
It's the opposite of last year, right? Last year we started off scorching hot. I think like we went into the World Cup break up like 30 units or something stupid. We were really killing it. And then we came back down a little bit. This has been the opposite. I mean, if you had told me at the end of January or the middle of February, after I think we had 2 1-win weeks this year, 2 1-9 weeks, and at least another 2-8 week. So if you would have told me we had like 3+ weeks with only 3 winners and we'd still be actually above 500 with picks, I'm okay with it. We're getting hot at the right time. Champions League is back. We won both of our games on Tuesday. That's not reflected here in the tracker, but 2 plays, 2+ money wins. So happy about that. And let's just keep rolling. We're having some fun. Like you said, Coach, we're seeing the board well. Teams are down the final stretch here to make or break their 2024. So Kicks and Picks podcast going to do the same.
Yeah, it's been a nice start to 2024. I know personally I had back-to-back 3-0 weeks before I went 2-1 this week. But even my loss on the Leipzig pick, it was one of those ones where I believe they missed a penalty kick in the second half that would have gotten me the win. So it's like I just feel like we're on the right track even when we don't hit a bet, and that feels good. I know it's been kind of that way in other sports for us too, off the podcast when we're looking at other American sports. So I think it's just been a positive vibe for the first 6 weeks or so of the calendar year. And I have to say, I hit it last week. You guys were looking toward the over on upsets in the Premier League. I said, no way. Too many trash matchups. And I guess in some ways, I feel good to be right that it was under the 3.5 that you targeted for drop points. I think under 2.5 or under 3, I think you said, right? You want the Asian line on us.
Asian line. Yeah.
I think it was actually none hit. So my under was way under. I mean, not good for like people who like to see upsets. Maybe not good for Scotty's Liverpool to pick up some points on those teams around him in the table. But yeah, the Premier League just proved to be favorites galore last week, just kind of rolling through what they had to do.
Yeah, I think some of it is just that we're in that point of the season now where I think teams are starting to get healthy. Like City's getting healthy, obviously, with Haaland back and De Bruyne back. Liverpool are starting to get healthy. I think they're the laggers of the group. Arsenal are getting healthy. Spurs, after their fucking disaster of the end of 2023, they're starting to get healthy. So I think part of it is just that these squads are seemingly getting themselves back together after a pretty congested period around, that holiday fixture list. So I think that's certainly a little bit of it. And I think it's also just the fact that I think, the goals for these teams now are pretty clear coming into the last part of the season, right? Like if you're Villa, you know that you have to like go all out to just try to get into the Champions League and maybe win your Conference League, but there's really nothing else left for them. Spurs pretty much similar, like they've been eliminated from all the competitions aside from getting into basically the top 4. So it kind of gives them a little bit more of a focus on what the results need to be, and I think that kind of helps in some regards. Usually those bottom half of the table clubs, that's when they get their upsets, is when one club is looking ahead, like a City would be looking ahead to Champions League, although that obviously didn't happen this weekend. So I think it's a little bit of both, but and we're in a similar situation again this weekend where there's not really any marquee matchups per se. So it'll be interesting to see if we get another repeat of last weekend where the favorites prevail, or maybe this is the time where maybe somebody sneaks up on someone unsuspecting.
Yeah, no real marquee matchups like you said. We'll jump right into the Premier League. The only name brand sort of matchup that we have is what we're calling the FFP immunity match, and that is City hosting Chelsea. Scotty, you dubbed it that because these are two clubs that love to spend, but yet neither seems to get any charges sucked to them. I mean, Everton fans must look at this and be like, feel like the victims because they're getting hammered with FFP charges. Then you got City and Chelsea spending like wild, with the big ownership that they have. And I'm sure other teams look at it and say like, what do they have to do to have any kind of consequences? But on the pitch this weekend, it is looking very lopsided in the lines. I mean, I don't know if you ever thought before, like last season, that Chelsea would ever be a plus 700 money line underdog at Manchester City, even when City's been at their best. Chelsea's been closer to that in the table, not a mid table team. Draw no bet minus 900 for City, plus 500 for Chelsea. The over is set at 3.5 plus 115, under 3.5 minus 150. So they're expecting goals. Really, the only value that jumps off the page at you is that you have to go City minus 1.5 at minus 115. Scotty, you're a Premier League guy. What do you make of this match? Does Chelsea have any shot to go to the Etihad and get anything out of this?
I would say no chance. They did win Monday against Crystal Palace. They put together a 3-1 performance that honestly looks a lot better on paper than it did on the pitch. I think the third goal came in like the 94th minute. It's just kind of like a late ad. Yeah. But really the only, attacking player that did anything for Chelsea during that whole time was Conor Gallagher, which I said was kind of ironic because, Chelsea are in this position right now where it doesn't look like they're going to make any form of European competition and getting any sort of European prize money for next season, which is going to be pretty painful for them when it comes to the FFP. It seems like there is some, loose enforcement now getting put in place in England at the very least. So from what we know in their finances, it sounds like they have to make something around 40 to 50 million in profit by the end of June, which means they're going to be player sales. And if you know anything about the Chelsea, player acquisitions in the past 2 years, they've been buying guys at overinflated prices, which means you're not really going to be able to make profit on them. And they haven't been playing well. So the irony that I kind of texted to you guys is that Conor Gallagher is one of the few players that they can and will sell in June, to try to get to that 50 million in profit line. So it'll be really interesting to see. I mean, again, the calendar ends, end of June, and then a new fiscal calendar begins, so they can start to spend again in July and August. And I'm sure they'll spend another 200 million or so, bringing in who knows what, but, it's just kind of a weird spot for them because this whole plan that Bowley put in place to buy and invest in the squad heavily and get young players that can hopefully develop over time and balance the books with European prize money, it's not really coming out the way they planned. And this is exactly the kind of match where I think if you would ask Bowley when he took over the club, what would be your aspirations in a year and a half, 2 years down the road, if he said we just want to be within minus 300 on the money line of Manchester City, I think a lot of people would have laughed at him. So it's tough. From Liverpool fan, good riddance. Chelsea have been kind of a pain in the ass for many, many years, even going back through the Abramovich era. But I would love for them to get something here just to kind of ease a little bit of pressure on Liverpool when it comes to the title race in City. I just don't see it.
Yeah, I'm trying. I wanted to listen to what you had to say. I was trying to make my own case for Chelsea in this one, but I can't. You look at Man City, they've now won 11 straight games, all competitions. They're firing on all cylinders. They're finally healthy-ish for the first time all season. So De Bruyne has looked good. Bernardo Silva has looked really good. They are really getting kind of nothing out of Haaland the last month or so. He's rounding his way back into game shape. So they're dominating teams without him really having as big of an impact as he had prior to the injury as he had last year. That's only going to turn around. And it's really looking at it like, hey, well, maybe City's looking forward to Champions League. Nope, can't use that excuse because they already played this week. So they don't have a Champions League fixture the following week. There's just nothing that I'm seeing that tells me that Chelsea's going to be in this game. I think the odds are where they need to be. I think if you are looking to play this game, City minus goal and half, probably the way to play it, like the way Steve said. If you want to use Man City as maybe like a parlay piece at minus 300, I guess you could do that, but I just, I don't know how Chelsea comes in here and does it. City will have to have an off day, but I think they're firing on all cylinders right now. They know that any slip up is, going to be detrimental to their chances at winning the league. But I can't do it. Sorry. I'm trying. I'm trying to even talk myself into it, but I got nothing for Chelsea.
Yeah, I agree. There's not much here besides that -1.5 spread on City side. I mean, they're at the Etihad. City will have played on Tuesday, so plenty of time to rest heading into this one. It's not like it's a super quick turnaround like some of these Europa League teams go through on the weekend. I don't see any way, shape, or form Chelsea does anything. Maybe they get a goal, making both teams a score -135, have a little bit of juice if you think that they can get one, just like Copenhagen got one today. You could also go, I saw City in over 2.5, I think is around the same -115 number as City -1.5. If you think it might be like a 2-1 type match, if you're of that persuasion, you can get a little value there, but I don't see any way that Chelsea gets any kind of result to make double chance or anything worthwhile.
You know what? This is maybe a spot for a goal scorer for City.
Yeah.
If wait for the lineups,
outside
don't
of
know who's going to be
Haaland.
starting, but Foden's +200, Alvarez +200, Grealish +230, Silva +230, De Bruyne +280. Maybe somebody there. If you believe in Cole Palmer, he's +320. I mean, pretty solid number.
Former club.
But
yeah,
I think that's probably the way to play this game. I think it's to, I don't make this one of your locks. Don't make this a multi-unit play. Just this is kind of a watch what happens. Maybe take a stab with a goal scorer, have a little fun, throw some beer money on it. But there's no need to play City, to score 3 or City -2 goals or whatever it is.
Yeah. And I should also correct myself. I said at the beginning of the pod that, these clubs are starting to get healthy. That's actually not entirely true because Chelsea is still getting injured more and more every week. Thiago just picked up an injury on Monday, who's kind of been, even at 39, one of their consistently positive performers at, week in and week out. So I assume he's going to miss this one. I think he pulled his groin. So he'll probably be out for this one. Their back line has been completely decimated between Reece James and, Badiashile and, the rest of that group. I think Cucurella's also been out. So this really should be one where City feasts from a goals perspective. And then, maybe Chelsea can find a goal. Maybe Nkunku has a good game. But aside from that, I can't imagine in any way, shape, or form that Chelsea outperforms City in the final third, in the middle third, in their defensive third. There's not going to be one part of the pitch where they have an advantage over City in this.
Yeah, agreed. So I think we'll leave that one here. Not much more to say on that one. And we'll move on to Serie A. And we're going to focus on the race for the top 4 in this one. Looking at the current table, it is still very congested from places 4 through 9, really. Starting to get a little distance between some of these clubs after last week's results. But Atalanta, 23 matches played, 42 points. Bologna, 23 played, 39 points. Roma, 24 played, 38 points. Fiorentina, 23, 37 points. Lazio, 23 played, 37 points. And Napoli, 23 played, 35 points. So Roma, the only team there that's played 24 so far because those matches that need to be made up. But one of those will be made up tomorrow on Wednesday. We're recording on Tuesday. That is Fiorentina and Bologna. So there will be some movement in the middle of the table. Maybe the Viola leapfrog a couple sides. Maybe it's Bologna, getting a little bit more distance between themselves and Roma and Fiorentina and the pack. Or maybe it's a draw and things stay kind of tight. But the matchup this weekend, just so we have an idea of who everybody's playing. Napoli is playing Genoa. Atalanta hosting Sassuolo. Lazio hosting Bologna. They're also playing Champions League tomorrow, so they have a midweek match themselves. Empoli hosting Fiorentina and Frosinone hosting Roma, who also plays Thursday in Europa League. Any of those sides, Nick, that when you look there at those 5 head-to-heads, team likely to drop points? I mean, Lazio Bologna is the most evenly matched match, obviously, because they're both in that fight. But who's most likely to drop points maybe out of the other 4? And then we can talk a little bit about that matchup of your heart, so to speak.
So I think you called it out. Scotty and I were dead wrong last week about favorites in the Premier League. Lucky for us, Serie A is not the Premier League. We know that. We've known it now for several years. There's going to be chaos. There will, for sure be chaos in these matchups. I think a lot of these teams can drop points. There's one that I think it's actually the furthest apart for a betting spread, but a team that I think is really vulnerable here is Napoli. So
They're minus
they're
180.
right. Okay,
Yeah,
so
closer
I
than you
think,
yeah.
and what is, I'm sorry, Genoa's plus 475.
Plus
I mean,
475, yeah.
that's pretty far. So
Big
I
spread.
think, listen, Napoli's at home, but Genoa's been playing really well. They've been scoring a ton. They're way above where you expected to be in the standings. They're in 12th place. They've got points in, I think, 4 out of their last 5 games. The thing that worries me about Napoli is not only have they obviously been terrible, right? They just lost another scoreless game. Osimhen will not be back for this game. That's been confirmed. He's still in Nigeria or wherever he is.
Okay, that's confirmed. Okay, so that's big.
He's not coming back until the Barcelona game, I believe. And Napoli's got to be looking ahead to the Champions League. Like, they have to. If there's a team on this list that is looking ahead, it's Napoli. I'm not saying they're going to lose, but man, I could totally see a slip up in this one.
I can see it when you look at the matchups. That one does jump out just because of how poor Napoli's been of late, right? Without Osimhen, especially, I wasn't sure if he'd be back or not for this one. With him not being back, it does worry me because Genoa, like you said, up to 12, they did get smashed by Atalanta last week, but Atalanta, has the potential to do that to sides. It has to be concerning for Napoli fans, right? Look at what they did last week against Milan. Could not find the back of the net yet again. I mean, they have just been struggling to do anything in attack. And now they're down to 9th. And like we said, the gap is widening. And part of that's because Napoli's been so poor. They're only on 35 points. Like, they're at the point where of the teams that have a match in hand on Roma, they're the only ones that can't leapfrog Roma with that match in hand, right? Which kind of shows where the distance has gone. You look at their matches. I mean, you said it 1-0 last week, lost. They did beat Verona the week before in a very late goal, 0-0 draw, 2-1 win against Salernitana, who's terrible. Lost to Torino, drew Monza scoreless, lost to Roma when Roma was really struggling. It hasn't been good in the league. Has not been good at all. And I think the Genoa match, I think, like you said, has potential to see them slip up again. I think it's definitely there.
Yeah, and listen, could it happen in some of these other games? I think it could. I think Atalanta is probably the safest because we know how bad Sassuolo is. Lazio Bologna, like you said, we can talk about it, but probably the most evenly matched matchup. Fiorentina, I have a pick in that game, so I'll get to it at the end. And Roma, I think somebody definitely has a pick in that game, but I don't think that is particularly close. I think Roma gets the job done.
And I just look back at the reverse fixture. The reverse fixture back in September, before Napoli was really, really struggling, was a 2-2 at the Marassi. Genoa has been very good against the big sides. They beat Roma, they beat Lazio, drew Napoli, like we just said. So they are not afraid of the big boys. And I think that plays into their hands as well. Drew Inter as well. So they can be very tough. Oh, Drew Juve. I'm just going through their counter, and they just keep popping up. Like, these results against big sides pop up. A lot of them at home. But truth be told, I mean, they can go head to head with any of these sides when they want to.
Yeah, listen, 7 wins, 8 draws, 9 losses. I mean, this is a newly promoted club. Yeah. That's pretty fucking good.
Gilardino, right? Is the manager?
Yes, it is.
Yeah. So I agree there. I think that is the most likely, just based on form of the teams involved. Lazio, Bologna. Let's talk about that quick before we talk about the.
Wait, hold on. Let's give Scotty some love.
Okay.
Listen, you guys have said it. The only point I was put out, you guys are on track with Napoli. I think we've kind of beat that horse at this point. That none of us here are believers in them, and Genoa, I think, give them a closer game than I would say maybe people are giving them credit for. But again, I don't even know if that's the case at this point. I did want to call it Atalanta because I think, weirdly enough, they've been the 3rd best team in Serie A over the last couple of months.
Definitely
10 wins, 1 loss, 1 draw in their last 12. Just absolutely scorching form. Their team total against Sassuolo over 2.5 is plus 110. That's all you really need to know, because that's a absurd number. So
yeah,
I think it's, if you're looking at any of those off the list, Napoli would be the one that jumps out. But after that, I think you can pretty much pencil in wins for the rest of the favorites of that group.
And I think the big thing too for Atalanta, just like Juve, especially when it comes to this race for top 4, is Europe, right? They're able to focus just on Serie A, and they're starting to get hot in Serie A now. Wins in 1, 2, 3, 4, 4 wins and a draw in their last 5. I'm seeing here that they're starting to cook a little bit, and they have no distractions midweek like almost all the rest of these teams have, besides Bologna. So that could also play into their hands a bit.
For sure.
Yep.
All right, so the Nick, Lazio Bologna, that's the matchup of your heart. We won't do a full preview of it, but that is the most meaningful match on the table this weekend because these teams, Bologna's got this big one against Fiorentina midweek, then a big one against Lazio on the weekend. Just to give a little background, obviously it'll be played by the time people listen to this, but Bologna's plus 130 at home on Wednesday against Fiorentina, who's plus 215. Then you look ahead to the weekend prior to any result in that match, and it's kind of the reverse with Lazio at home. Lazio's plus 120 in the money line, Bologna plus 230. And the line is set at 2.5, and the under is minus 195. The over is at plus 145. Is it going to be one of those low scoring matches like Bologna has seen so often this year? Do you think they just try to keep it tight on the road? And can Lazio break them down?
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. I think both teams are plagued by similar problem is that they neither score enough. I think if either of these teams scored, well, I mean, it's kind of a cop out to say this. I guess you could say it about any team, but if either of these teams scored 25% more goals, they'd have a pretty, strong hold on fourth, or at least, in that real conversation for fourth or fifth. So I see both of these teams as really having that issue. You mentioned Bologna is playing midweek. Lazio is also playing midweek. They play Bayern Munich tomorrow or Wednesday, if you're listening to this. So can't imagine anything good happens for Lazio there. I think that potentially both teams could be looking for a rebound. Odds are a little strange to me. I don't know that Lazio should be 100% favorite. I think their home form has been very good. That's probably the reason for it. And, could they hold Bologna to 0 goals or 1 goal? I think they could. I'm just worried if they can score enough to get 3 points. So this is a tough one. I think the draw line being at plus 200 tells you something that's very low. I think a draw is certainly possible in this game. If you were going to take Bologna, draw no bet. If you were going to take Bologna, maybe plus a quarter of a goal at minus 115, I think that's probably a solid way to bet it. But yeah, it's tough. I mean, the Asian total is set at 2, right? So you can get over 2 at minus 125. I think,
Take it.
Yeah.
Take it.
Big reason for that is what you mentioned, the home road split. Bologna, you point out the draw before Scotty goes, and that's I think good value because Bologna in 11 road matches is 1 win, 7 draws, 3 losses. Only 11 scored, but only 15 conceded. So they play those low scoring, a lot of 1-1 draws on the road. And Lazio's gonna have to find a way to get a second. I think is what it's going to come down to in this one.
I'm going to just go ahead and say if we're going to be taking a lot of credit for our form in 2024, we got to give credit to Bologna because they have scored 12 goals in their 5 league games in 2024, including 10 in their last 3. So I know historically, this season they haven't been exactly lighting the world on fire, but in the same period of time as our hot streak, they've also kind of caught fire. So
it's fair.
If that is a sign of things to come and we want to believe in that form, 4 goals against Lecce, 4 goals against Sassuolo, not exactly the biggest names, but they did put up 2 against Milan, and Milan historically has had a pretty solid defense. So
yep.
I think there's something to be said for that. I think that's a trend that you can, bank on. If you think, like Nick, you called out the Asian total at over 2. Like I for sure think that's an over because there should be at least 2 goals in this easy, in my opinion. I know Lazio might struggle to figure something out, but my hope is that if Bologna scores first, which is maybe the real prop of the day here, it forces Lazio to get more aggressive than they may otherwise choose to do so.
Yeah, I like it. I think the over 2 is a solid play here. I was really trying to get into corners for this matchup, but Bologna hasn't gotten a lot of corners in their last dozen games, and historically head-to-head, this matchup does not have a ton of corners. I was really trying to get Bologna over 3.5. It's at minus 130, but the stats were just not on our side here. So I'm not going to sweat out another corner loser for the sake of the podcast. I may take it personally, but the stats are not on our side in this one.
I'll just wrap up my point. Bologna first goal is plus 125. So maybe that's the play.
Yeah, not bad.
Yeah, and just to wrap this one, you mentioned the goal scoring struggles of both teams. Like Lazio's goal scoring at 28 scored is more in line with like the mid table clubs in the league right now. You know, the top clubs, Inter aside, who's got 55 scored, 12 conceded, they're head and shoulders above everybody in terms of their goal differential. You look at Juve, 36 scored, Milan 47 scored, Atalanta 44 scored, Bologna 33, Roma 42, Fiorentina 36. So you go down that list, and it's really been down to the defense that's kept Fiorentina. I'm not Fiorentina, rather Napoli, Lazio, Bologna. Like those clubs are hanging around because they don't concede a lot because their goal scoring hasn't been the best. So it'll be interesting to see who can find that second. I think that is the key to this match. Like you said, I think the over 2 is probably a fairly safe play because you probably get at minimum a 1-1, I think, which tends to be the trend with Bologna. But things to keep an eye on for sure.
Yeah, and so last thing I'll say, I'm sorry before we finish it up here. You know, you guys know me. Anybody that listens to the show knows me. If you're new to the show, you can hear it here. I'm a big proponent of like getting an early line because I think there's a ton of value in it. This is a game where I will 100% be waiting until kickoff, or right before kickoff, to place a bet because both teams play on Wednesday, because both teams already have injuries, potential suspensions going into Wednesday's match. So really going to depend on the starting lineup. But I think all the bets we just gave out are absolutely valid, unless you tell me Xerxes and Orsolini are both out and Immobile and Zaccagni are both going to be out or something like that. So just something to keep an eye on.
Yeah, good point. Especially the midweek, I would definitely wait on this. You know, see what it looks like after you listen after these teams have played, and then kind of go from there. And then just to wrap on Serie A real quick, we don't spend much time on this, but do you see anyone separating themselves from the pack? Not necessarily this week, but in the next couple weeks. Is anybody going to start to pull away, or do you think this continues to be one of these revolving doors for fourth, fifth place, and it's going to come down to 4 or 5 teams pretty close to the end of the season?
Me or you,
Yeah,
Scotty?
I would say I'll just start. I'll say I think it's gonna be more of a revolving door. I think it'll come and go as certain teams have harder fixture lists over a 3 or 4 week span than other teams, and even still, like that doesn't necessarily mean that they get those 9 or 12 points as we've seen. There's upsets galore in Serie A, so
Yep.
I think you'll see a mixed bag probably throughout March and then maybe in April. That's usually when I think the picture kind of becomes a little bit more clear. Usually at that point, whoever's left in Serie A in Europe are the clubs at the top 2 or 3 positions, and then the rest of them are just focused on league position. So
Yeah. No, I think that's more than fair. Just based on what we've seen all year, based on what we saw last year, the year before, the year before. I think if a team is going to separate a little bit, it's Atalanta because of the form that they've been on, because of how deep they are in the attacking midfield and forward positions. I think they're better off than just about everybody else here. They have Lookman coming back from the Cup of Nations. I think he was maybe Nigeria's best player, team that made it all the way to the final. So that's huge for them. You got Scamacca, who's going to try to do everything he possibly can to make this Euro squad for Italy.
Yeah.
I think he's poised to at least give us some hard work, right? He can't promise goals like Beto, but he's going to promise us some hard work going forward. So they've looked good, right? Coop Miners, they're getting goals from CDK, who's been fantastic. I mean, hand up, I was wrong on that dude. So I think they've put themselves in the best position. Could they go and rattle off 3 or 4 straight losses or 3 games without, getting full points? Of course they could. I think Scotty's exactly right, but I'm interested to see what Atalanta do, and I think it's going to be telling to see how Roma bounces back from their first defeat under De Rossi, and a game where they played really well in the first half and got absolutely demolished by the best team in the league. So if they bounce back, they're going to be a fun team down the stretch.
yeah, the new manager bounce is now over for Roma, so it's time for them to earn it.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think it stays close. I think at least 3, 4 teams stay battling for fourth place till the end. Maybe 1 or 2 teams start to fall down the table a bit. They capitulate. It could happen, but I think any of these teams is capable of winning 3 in a row, 4 in a row, or also, like Nick said, dropping 3, 4 matches in a row where they don't get full points. And I think that's entirely plausible and I think very likely at different stretches. And Scotty said at different points in the calendar, you have those rough stretches. Other points, you have a nice fixture list. Like Roma just came off 3 very winnable fixtures. They won, they lost to Inter, and then they have another stretch of 3-4 games where only Fiorentina's mixed into a couple lower table clubs, and then it's three tough matches in a row. So the calendar kind of bounced around for all those teams like that, and that's something to keep an eye on. And also those matches in hand, I looked at the calendar looking ahead. I think over the next 3 midweeks, those will be caught up. So it'll be a little bit easier to kind of read the table as well, because when teams are on different matches played, it gets a little tricky. So I think with that, we move on to our hat trick of picks, guys. Where are we going to follow up that 7-3 week? Hopefully bounce back with even more juice this week and push to 8 or 9, or maybe even get our second 10-0 week of the season, right? We did have one, I believe. 10-0, or was it a 9-1?
I don't think we've had a 10-0. I think we've had a
9-1, right? So let's look to top our best week.
I'm just gonna try to get 2 wins this week. Don't know that I've had that in about 2 months. So
well, if you get 2, it's possible to get 9.
that is good math. So I will start with probably my worst pick, because why not start there? I'm taking Aston Villa money line at plus 125 at Fulham. To me, this seems like a very easy bounce back opportunity for Villa. They've had a great season so far. Certainly played themselves into a favorite for top 5, which should be a Champions League spot come season end. Did lose pretty unfortunately to United on the weekend. I think it was like a 3-1 final score line, which now puts them just, I think, 4 points ahead of United in the table. So I think they're going to want to bounce back. I think they're going to want to start to get, another winning streak going here. Fulham, I think, provide that opportunity. They are on the road. Craven Cottage is a pretty difficult place to play, but Fulham have had a, smorgasbord of results over the last 2 or 3 months. They have good wins and they have some terrible losses. So there is a chance that Fulham comes out and they have, an incredible performance, and this is a losing pick. But for me, I think Villa are more likely to come out, try to rebound strong, and the plus 125 number I think is really appealing to me. So that's ultimately where I'm going.
Yeah, I want to back you up. I think I've been higher on Fulham than most over the past month. Like for whatever reason, I've just caught a lot of their games and I've bet on a lot of them. I think like this is on paper, like just a must-win game for Villa, right? Like you have to have it. The odds add up. Plus 125 is not something you would expect them to be at. You got to go with it.
Yeah. And you got to think like United have Luton Town. I know Luton had been playing well, but just dropped points to Sheffield United. So you don't really want to let that gap drop down to like 1 or 2 points, considering how strong Villa started the season and how poorly United started the season. I think that would be very demoralizing for the Villa squad.
Yeah, I agree. I like it at that number. You mentioned it, plus 125, and then you're on the outside looking in at top 4 right now. United's catching up for that 5th place Europa League spot, which would be a step up from where you're on the Conference League this year. So definitely got to get 3 points here if you're Villa. For my first pick, I'm going to the continent. I'm going to Germany, and it is Dortmund team total over 1.5 minus 125 at Wolfsburg. I was torn between this one and Juve clean sheet this weekend at minus 110 against Hellas Verona. I ended up going with Dortmund as my third pick, and I'm leading with it here. So if you are listening and you want a guaranteed winner, it's probably Juventus clean sheet minus 110 against Hellas, because I did not take it. But for this Dortmund one, Wolfsburg's defense has been good since the Bundesliga restarted in mid-January, allowing multiple goals just once. However, over the same 5-match stretch, Dortmund has scored 3 goals or more 4 times. The reverse fixture was a 1-0 win for Dortmund back in September. I think they get 2 or more here given their recent form.
I like it. All right, I got 3 picks, and these are vibes picks, right? Went 3-0 last week. We've been hot. I didn't even have to go to like advanced stats for any of my picks because they all just kind of jumped out at me. Coach mentioned that clean sheet for Juve. I like Juve team total over 1.5. It's at even money at Hellas Verona. Juve has done something exceptionally well for years now, but this year in particular, they've handled the bad teams. And not only have they handled the bad teams, they've scored 2, 3, and 4 goals. That's something we've not seen from Juve in quite some time. They had a slip up last week to Udinese. Nobody expected that, but there's a super slim chance that Juve will drop points in 2 straight games to opposition like that. I think they bounce back in a big way. Vlahovic will be back and fit for this game. They're going to be motivated. Milan, only 1 point behind them, by the way, for second place, which I mean, difference between second and third doesn't mean anything, but just, something to keep an eye on, that we kind of tabbed Milan to be pretty good this year, and I think we're that's coming true. So expect a good game out of Juve. Even money for this is just kind of a steal. I think they are up a goal by half. I think they cruise to 2 goals in this one.
Chances FC, now Nick's new favorite team to bet on.
Fact.
All right. My second pick is a 2-for-1. It's because I struggled to find value this week as we talked about the Premier League slate. I'm going with a parlay, moneyline parlay, Tottenham moneyline versus Wolves, so Tottenham at home, and then City moneyline versus Chelsea comes out to plus 105. We've already discussed, I think City are an automatic play in this one, but at minus 300, it's tough to play them alone. And I don't really love giving up the goal and a half just because you never know what happens with Chelsea. They come out to play, maybe they keep it close. So really, I'm just trying to juice the line of Tottenham, who are minus 180 at home versus Wolverhampton. But Tottenham are probably going to have their first 11 playing in this one for the first time since October. Son is back from the Cup of Nations. He came on as a sub last weekend against Brighton. Basuma and Sarr are back from AFCON. Van de Ven is healthy again. So Madison is healthy again. So I think you're going to see the Tottenham that we saw in the first 10 to 12 weeks of the season show up at home against Wolverhampton. And to go along with it, now they actually have a bench of subs that actually can make an impact, like we saw with Brennan Johnson scoring that 94th minute winner against Brighton. You also probably will have Timo Werner coming off the bench, assuming Son starts, and then some combination of Højbjerg and Bentancur can come off the bench for midfield should you need to shore things up. So I think Postecoglou's side is going to look really, really good this weekend. I think they're going to remind us why they were one of the top 3 clubs to start the season, and getting this basically at plus money, assuming City takes care of business, I think is a no-brainer.
Love.
Yeah, good number for 2 likely winners. All right, I'm going with the club we were just talking about with my second pick. It is Milan, or Chances FC, as Scotty likes to call them, minus 120 on the money line at Monza. Milan's been on absolute roll in the league right now. Rossoneri have gone 9 straight unbeaten in Serie A, 7 wins and 2 draws. They're now just 1 point behind Juve for second, like Nick mentioned in the table. We rode them quite a few times in that 9-match stretch to wins, and cashing some bets. So this match is a fairly quick turnaround after playing Europa League on Thursday against Stade Rennes. That is a home match, though, at the San Siro, so not much travel involved here as they stay right in Lombardia to take on Monza. I think Milan has plenty to get past Monza, whom they beat 3-0 in the reverse fixture at the San Siro. Short trip, even with the quick turnaround from Europa League, I think they've got plenty to get it done here at minus 120.
Cool. So just scroll back 30 seconds, take everything Coach Steve said, and add Milan team total over 1.5, minus 115. That's my pick. We're double dipping, but we have double dipped on Milan in the past. I believe we're 2-0 double dipping on Milan, if
I believe so. Yeah.
Memory serves me correctly, but they have been on a team total streak. The books are going to keep offering this at minus 115. We are going to keep taking it until they let us down. Milan, 2 goals, minus 115.
The Pioli out critics have really quieted down on Twitter over the last 2 months too.
No, they kind of were talking a little bit today because like guys like Brahim Diaz was scored a nasty fucking goal for Real, and CDK has been really good for Atalanta, and one other player I forget that they let go that's been doing good. So there's still talk, but nothing about the standings.
Yeah, hard to argue with 7 wins and 2 draws and 9.
What's the other player you're thinking of? Divock Origi?
No,
it wasn't. I'm just being hopeful.
Scotty's sleeper apple of the season last year.
Yeah. Listen, I missed that one, but I nailed Calvin Phillips. So it's you take the good with the bad. All right, I will close things out for my picks of the weekend. I'm going to Spain. We're going to go truly worldwide with our picks this weekend. I'm going to take Real Madrid and over 1.5 at Rayo Vallecano. Madrid are dealing with some injuries. Bellingham probably not going to play. I think he picked up an ankle sprain. Looked like Brahim Diaz hurt his calf maybe in the second half. I hope it's just a calf. It was one of those Achilles calf type injuries where he just kind of stopped playing while he had the ball. So kind of concerning. But really this pick is against Vallecano because I think low key, they might be the worst team in La Liga right now, even though they're sitting like 16th or 15th place. They've got just one win since October, and that was a 2-0 win against an 8-man Getafe side. They picked up 3 red cards somehow, and Vallecano only managed a 2-0 win as a result. So I think Madrid roll in this one, with or without Bellingham. I think prior to this, they just beat Girona, 4-0.
Smoked them.
So
Yep.
certainly rolling. And more so than anything, Vinny Jr. owes me one because he really fucked me with the no shots on target to ruin my 5-leg parlay today.
There.
All right. I'm going with my boys with my last pick. Roma moneyline -115 at Frosinone. Similar to Milan, Roma plays Europa League on Thursday. Unlike Milan, Roma does have to travel to Rotterdam for what should be an intense match against Feyenoord. However, since Daniele De Rossi has taken over, the Roma attack has really picked up steam with players back from both African and the Asian Cup, plus most everyone else back from injury. The Giallorossi should have enough depth to manage both of these matches. I think that's especially true of this one against a Frosinone side that has conceded in 9 straight matches and just shipped 5 to Fiorentina. Also, good value I'll throw in there on the team total if you think maybe they concede a few. The team total is at -125, which I also considered.
For 2 goals?
For 2 goals.
Might switch up my pick. I like that. I might double dip with you. All right. What do we do when we have a vibe check? We go to a Fiorentina game. You guys know I am super hard on Fiorentina, but they are plus money at Empoli, plus 105 on the money line. Here's the reality. You mentioned it, Coach. They are playing midweek, and that is a win-win scenario for us because they either get a good result and they're carrying that momentum into Empoli, or they get a bad result and they're going to be looking to rebound. Either way, I think Fiorentina take care of Empoli. Shouldn't be much of a match. If they don't win, I'd be really, really surprised. Plus 105 is just too good to pass up. Fiorentina money line.
All right. That brings us to the pod lock. We're going to the Bundesliga. And if we're going to the Bundesliga, I probably dug it up. So the boys are going to let me read this one off. And they rode with it. So we're going Stuttgart and over 2.5 match parlay at plus 110. Stuttgart continues to be a high-flying attack with 49 goals scored in the league. That's the 3rd best attack behind just Leverkusen and Bayern Munich, who are the only 2 sides ahead of them in the table right now. Their last 4 matches in all comps have had 4 goals or more. And Darmstadt has conceded the most goals in the league by far, also conceding 49, ironically. The reverse fixture was 3-1 to Stuttgart, and this one should bring a similar scoreline. I'd be shocked if we don't get 3 goals in this one. The over, I believe, is set at 3.5 as it is, and Stuttgart has been high flying, especially the last few weeks.
So this is when we talk about Germany, as we often do, and we say classic German games over 2.5. You want to see goals. It's chaos. This is the team. This is the game we're talking about.
Yeah,
starting to get back to where it needs to be.
What I had them over 2.5 with Leipzig a couple weeks ago, and I think I cashed that in the first half.
Yeah, love it.
Yeah, this is a big game for Stuttgart for me because I think the last time we had them as a podlock, we lost. And so if they lose this one, they will be forever known as Stuttgart to me.
Yeah, no, they're banned. This is their last chance. If you lose 2 podlocks, you're banned from the podlock.
Can't do it.
100%.
And then the other thing is this is a long callback. So if you're a fan of the pod, you may remember this, but we took Monaco, a similar bet. It was Monaco and team total over 1.5 or total 2.5 against the last place team in Ligue 1, which I think was Toulouse at the time. And that was one of the rare misses that we had on the podlock. So we got really 2
I think that was our first podlock loss of the season, if I'm not mistaken.
Monaco, I believe so.
Yeah.
I think we need the redemption on that with this pick, and I think Stuttgart needs a redemption on their previous loss. Otherwise, we may have a double ban going on in some fashion here.
Yeah, I have to agree.
All right, we'll leave it there. So stick with us. Give us your locks of the week in the comments section or hit us on Twitter. And plenty of places to find our work. If you want to watch the video version of this podcast every week, we are on YouTube. We are on all major pod platforms. If you're watching on YouTube and you want to listen in the car or something, Scotty doing his work for happyhoursports.net every week, giving out his Premier League takes from the weekend. Usually pops up every Monday or so. And keep an eye on all the Champions League stuff that the guys have been putting out. They did a great episode this week with Andy Passero of remind me, Nick,
Plus Money Podcast.
And we're just going to keep cranking out winners and giving you guys good bets, and then hopefully have fun listening to the show. So thanks again for listening. We'll catch you guys next episode.